Greetings from Cybertron. This is SoundJack here with another episode of SoundJack's Rambles. And today I'm joined by Alyssa.
Peace.
And we are talking about Hamilton, an American musical. Dun da 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 dun 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 ba da da da.
I cannot believe we're at. It feels surreal to me that we're talking about this right now.
Yes.
Because for those of you who
we tried to do this for months.
Oh my god, when did we decide we were gonna do it?
Last year.
Yeah.
Last year, definitely some point last year, and every time it was the week where we were getting close to it, something came up, and then we had to shift the schedule. And because Hamilton wasn't like current, we were just shunting that back further and further.
Yep, we just kept.
Fortunately, which it does not deserve.
No. We're both mutually very sorry. Sorry, yes. Hamilton. But we're doing it now.
Yes, we are.
Which is great.
So first, the first musical we've talked about in a while, the last one was Chicago.
Yes.
And that makes me sad because I am a theater nerd and I'm a musical theater nerd especially. Mm-hmm. And this is a very good musical, so.
Yeah, it is a really good musical. I mean, granted, I've only listened. Well, we will talk about our history with it in a moment, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
Okay.
Let's get into how did we find out about it before we get into the spoiler stuff.
Sure. Do you want me to go?
How'd you?
Honestly, you probably introduced it to me.
Fair.
Like I don't know. Hamilton just kind of became a thing. You know how sometimes things just become a thing.
Yeah.
And you aren't too cognizant how you came to know about it. It was just a thing that happened.
Yes.
That's kind of what happened with Hamilton and me.
Yeah. It was just there, and you don't know why.
Yeah, it just was kind of a phenomenon that I'm trying to readjust my microphone. That I just became conscious of, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I guess this is a thing. So that's how I found out about it, and it's just kind of been in the background. I hadn't really listened to or interacted with it all that much. I only did it once this episode came around. So yeah.
As for me,
mm-hmm.
I knew about this musical as it was in the works.
Oh wow! Okay.
That's way getting into Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
I was familiar with Lin-Manuel Miranda's first show in the Heights because I, in fact, was in the Heights. I performed in that show in the summer of that. Yeah, 2014. That'd be 2014.
Yeah.
So the year before Hamilton came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I will acknowledge I should not have been in the Heights because I was not Benny.
Oh no.
I was not the only white person that the show actually has. And we did it in the middle of Pennsylvania, which was very white.
Oh boy.
We at least got a new snobby that was from Puerto Rico, and his love interest. I don't know why I'm blanking on his Usnavi's love interest, but she was also directly from Puerto Rico. I probably should never be in the show again unless I'm Benny. But that is how I got introduced to Lin-Manuel Miranda. And then I remembered when I went on my study abroad program over the summer, because I went on with a bunch of theater people were talking about Hamilton, and someone I knew had tickets for one of the first showings, and I was so jealous.
Oh boy.
But I also I brought that up because I remember on that trip, we all ended up having a trolley to ourselves.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, we just started singing one of the songs from In the Heights.
Great.
That is a very good show as well. Do not say you are a Hamilton scholar unless you have also listened to In the Heights.
Damn. That's quite a bit of history you have with it.
Yes.
Which makes sense. I mean, you are a theater person.
Yes.
I don't put that past you.
Also, junior year of high school,
Mm-hmm.
my history professor was obsessed with Hamilton.
Oh my god.
Like, we literally had an entire day of class dedicated to telling us what the heck the history of Hamilton was.
Wait, junior year of high school?
Yeah.
But it premiered in 2015.
No. I meant about actual Alexander Hamilton.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, what? Like,
no. Oh yeah, actual real life Alexander Hamilton.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's what I meant. The professor was obsessed with the historical figure Alexander Hamilton. We had an entire day dedicated to learning about his history, with the end of the lecture basically being, "How has this not become a movie yet?"
Amazing.
Now we got a musical. So,
nice.
Yeah. But before we get into the spoilers, Alyssa, would you recommend people go see the show and or listen to it?
Well,
because saying it, because it's an expensive show.
Right. If you can either somehow have enough money to blow on tickets, or you just so happen to like get your hands on some tickets that are affordable and or free. Like, I think they have a free raffle drawing for them.
Yeah.
So if you get your hands on one of those, I'd say definitely see it. I mean, unfortunately, as you probably will find out, and I guess we should just say this for clarity, neither Michael nor I have physically seen the show.
Yeah, I've not seen the show in its entirety. I've seen several clips of various parts of the show. Right. So I know what the stage looks like. I know the gist of some of the scenes, and how they're staged and whatnot. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to comment on those aspects of the show.
Right. It'll probably be chiefly the music and I guess the plot
and the story.
This plot of it, and like we probably won't really talk too much about performance and staging because we can't really comment on it. So that's kind of what that's going to be our approach. So, but I would say, considering what it is, I'd say it's definitely worth seeking out.
Yes.
If you can, and I think it's highly worth just listening to the soundtrack. It's all on Spotify, so you can get it for free, and it's a pretty good listen. Yeah. And I also would say that I think honestly it might even be a little more accessible than maybe some other Broadway tunes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So if you're not that into Broadway, I'd say that this soundtrack might be more appealing to you. But I also would say that, like, if you aren't that big into Broadway, like, the music does have kind of that Broadway tint to it. But I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, if you're not that hot into Broadway musicals, it doesn't really do it for you, in general, then I think that this one would be a good one to start with.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can move on to other Broadway tunes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, yes, I definitely agree. This is not your typical musical, for sure, because it's one of the very, very few that would be categorized as a hip-hop musical.
Yes.
Or rap musical. The only other one basically being In the Heights, which, again, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Right.
But it is a very good story. It is a very good musical. It is definitely worth the listen. And if you have the chance, you should go see it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yes.
But let's dive into the spoilers, or the meat of the
spoilers for Alexander Hamilton's historical life.
Yes.
Spoilers for the American Revolution.
Yeah.
Spoilers, we won.
Spoilers to what happens at the end of Alexander Hamilton's life.
Oh no! I can't. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. Yeah, honestly, there aren't that many spoilers. Like,
No.
really.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
it would just be the experience of listening to the soundtrack. I would
Yeah.
say this is probably.
If you had a professor that happened to like also be obsessed about Alexander Hamilton and taught you Alexander Hamilton's life history, you already know the show.
Yeah, and I mean, like, honestly, I feel like this is going to be one of the very few shows. I mean, there are some movies we've talked about in the past that I would say don't really warrant a spoiler warning, but this one I feel like especially. Like, even us
Yeah.
just talking about the soundtrack, I feel like if you haven't seen Hamilton or haven't, like, if you're going into this completely blind, I feel like we're not going to ruin the experience for you if we talk about it on this channel, to be honest. So, our spoiler warning is just, like, tacit, I guess you could say. Yeah. Like, this isn't oh my god, we're gonna, like, really give away anything. It's more like, if you just really don't want to listen to anything without any sort of preconceived notions about it, then fine, but otherwise, I don't think you're hurting yourself by listening to this. Sorry, I know that was a long preamble, but...
No, you're good. You're good.
I mean...
but before we get into this, I want to mention a couple of things.
Sure.
About the show itself.
Okay.
One, I'm not sure if you picked up on this, Alyssa, but it is in the vein of Les Mis, where the whole show is sung. It's not broken up by acted scenes. This is a whole musical thing.
Yeah, I got that.
And this this musical is based off of the biography Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow.
Mm-hmm.
And the musical itself is like 95% accurate to actual Hamilton's life. There's a few moments that are inaccurate to encourage to help foster the plot.
Right.
I think the most notable thing I remember is how Eliza was like, "Oh, I've got to marry someone." Angelica.
Okay.
She had to marry someone of wealth because her father didn't have any sons to pursue the line. That's not true. She did have brothers.
Okay.
She did have brothers, so that was just like the plot thing.
Gotcha.
But it's all of it's kind of like light stuff to like help that kind of a thing.
Right.
But like there are things that are accurate. Like what was the one line about like George Washington's wife named her dog after him?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but like, there's like I think it's talking about Aaron Burr and how much of a hound he is.
Oh,
and
yeah, I think I remember that line.
Yeah, and then Hamilton pipes in. That's true, and
I'll be honest. I'll be like strictly honest. I only really listened to the soundtrack all the way through only like once or twice, so my ability to recite anything is going to be a little on the low side. I'm sure you know the lyrics better than I do. Is my point.
I'm sure.
I believe you.
I'm just saying that is actually true. That was smoke or whatever.
Yeah.
But a little bit more backstory I recall now.
Okay.
My experience with musical. First time I actually heard a song was "Room Where It Happens," and it was when I was driving down to college for the year, I think.
Okay.
So.
Sweet.
Yeah. For junior year. Anyway, actually into the show. Where do you want to start? Because I could talk about a lot of things.
So, I feel like the thing to start with, I feel like we should just go with what we're going to probably be talking about the most, and that's just the music itself. I kind of wanted to talk about the music from a not Broadway aficionado perspective. So, some background on my personal music taste. I came into music really, I listened to a lot of, I would say I was very much I listened to the music of the era. So like there are two kinds of music that I listened to a lot as a kid. One was 80s music because my parents would play it all the time. So like my mom really likes Madonna and Michael Jackson and Air Supply. So yeah, Air Supply. So so that kind of music I listened to a lot as a kid. And then I also listened to, my dad really likes classic and modern rock, so I grew up listening to a lot of rock music. And in like my later years, like middle school, high school, I listened to more popular music, not necessarily pop music, but like a lot of like pop rock, for example. So like bands like Blink 182. Well, that's more alternative rock, but like the early 2000s, mid 2000s rock. So like 3 Days Grace, like new metal bands like Linkin Park. I didn't listen to Limp Bizkit though, because I don't like Limp Bizkit. What else? Paramore, Incubus. That's more alternative rock. So like alternative indie rock was like more my scene in high school. Mariana's Trench. That band's great, by the way. If you're looking for a cool rock band, check them out. They're great. High recommendation. Also, they have a lot of concept albums. They have 2 concept albums. So if you're into concept albums, definitely check them out too. I'm sorry. I know that's not relevant to anything, but like my point being is that that's like where I came from. And then only really recently have I been getting into listening to genres outside of my comfort zone. I listen to a large variety of different music. I listen to classic rock, alternative rock, pop stuff, indie rock, R&B, old stuff like old jazz tunes and disco stuff. By the way, I have a like huge 70s disco kick at the moment. Earth, Wind & Fire, Boney M, Rasputin, good song. Those guys, Casey and the Sunshine Band, those bands I go wild for. You play one of their songs, I'm like, woo! I don't understand why people don't like disco. It's a great genre. Anyway, so that's like what I've been listening to. And also recently I've been listening to a lot more rap and hip hop. So I think initially when I was younger, I was very allergic to hip hop and rap. But recently, and I wouldn't say I never listened to any rap as a kid. Most of the rap that I listened to were, like your really old school rap, like Sugar Hill Gang rap. So Rapper's Delight, I know that song by heart. And like 90s rap, like Ice-T. Ice-T's a 90s rapper. Will Smith, MC Hammer, like those guys were like most of my rap that I knew in high school. I didn't really listen to a lot of gangster rap, except for like the gangster rap that made it onto the pop charts, like Nelly, Hot in Here. That's a classic early 2000s gangster rap song. What other one? What is it called?
I have no idea, honestly.
I mean, like
I don't.
Just a Friend by Biz Markie. Love that song. Anyway, so my point is that coming to hip hop was a later thing in my life, but at this point in life, I do really like hip hop and rap a lot. And I think one of the things, and it's really nice and really great to hear hip hop coming into the Broadway scene. And I think the thing about hip hop is that hip hop as a genre it's very rooted in poetry and performance poetry.
Yeah.
And I know that seems kind of weird, but I think it's very true because unlike other genres, like for example, rock music, instrumentation is just as, if not even more important in some cases than lyrics. There are plenty of rock songs that have really lame, even basic lyrics, but they're still memorable and still great songs. So, like for example, we'll talk about a band that you and I both at least have a passing knowledge of, the Beatles.
Yeah.
I'm bringing this up because you like the Beatles, Michael. So, the Beatles music I mean, obviously there are songs that the Beatles have that are very lyrically developed, but I don't think I would say that the Beatles' strengths come from their lyricism, if that makes sense. Do you think that's
Mm-hmm.
fair? That's fair. Like I feel like a lot of times their instrumentation is just as important to their songs as their lyrics. Like one of my favorite Beatles songs is "Twist and Shout," and that song is not lyrically prowess at all. It's just a dance song. They're just like,
Yeah.
come on, baby, like it's a dancing song. Like the real part of the song that gets you is the way that it's sung and the instrumentation and the groove that's going on in it. That's more important.
Yeah.
Rap songs, on the other hand, they ride or die by their lyrical skills.
Yep.
A lot of rap songs need good lyrics, good rhythm, good flow in order to be good rap songs, because the beat is minimal. It's just a backing track. It's just it's just an accent.
I very
So
much okay. I want to step in really quick
sure.
because I was doing a project involving the polka rap.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not going to see the light of day now.
Oh.
But I was looking for the backing track for that
Mm-hmm.
for what I was doing, and holy crap, that backing track is crap. It is other. It sucks. It flat out sucks. I don't know if like the recording I have is a bad backing track, but then I went back to listen to the actual Pokey rap,
Mm-hmm.
and it's everything sounds like it's there. It's where it's supposed to be. It's just the lyrics that carry you through, and there's just the beat. It's like da 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 da, and
Yeah.
that just carries it through when it's the lyrics, even though all the lyrics were pretty much just, hey, here's all of the Pokemon.
Right, and that's, and like I said, that's the real strength of rap. A good rap song is good when it has a good rhythm and a good lyricism. Yeah. So the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because I think the songs that I like the most in the soundtracks are the ones that to me are the most, that like really bring in that rap feel. So
Okay.
like I think my favorite ones are the Continental Congress, the like rap duels.
Yes.
Those are amazing because the rhythm, the way the lyrics work, it's just all the strengths of rap are in there. And that's the kind of rap music that I die for. Like it's just so great. It's the rap songs that I'm just like, yeah, look at those like rhythms, the rhymes, the way it like beats, the way the beats are syncopated, like oh.
Yeah.
It's so great. And as someone who also background thing, I love poetry. I actually, when I went to college initially, I did a writer's workshop and I was a poet. So I have a lot of appreciation for poetic language. So I think rap, that's why I think I've appreciated rap a lot more in these recent years, because I appreciate the lyricism. The rap songs that I tend not to like are the ones that have really crappy lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And like the only song, like there are some songs that have crappy lyrics that still work. Like Biz Marquis's "Just a Friend" has really dumb lyrics and actually is almost inept in some ways in terms of its like flow and the way rhyme works. But the song is just so dorky and just so incredible, and the way it's performed, it works. But very few rap songs, a lot of rap songs break down if they don't have that.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy to say that like Hamilton definitely does do the rap. Though I will say the rap styling and the hip hop styling from Hamilton is way more reminiscent of like an earlier rap era. It reminds me a lot more of like Sugar Hill Gang, Run DMC. I don't even know if it reminds me that much of Run DMC actually. But I mean like the kind of rap that's like not the kind of rap music that we have today. Like trap music. If you like trap music, this is not at all like that. like there, like the beats aren't that ugly. There's not a lot of mumbliness to the lyrics. It's very clear and very concise. So very much it feels a lot more like early rap, like 80s 90s rap to me than modern rap, which is a lot more mumbly and very drony. Like I don't know, do you know a lot about like Migos and Gucci Mane and those guys? Well, yeah.
Unfortunately for me, if the music falls outside of classic rock, musicals, or whatever happened to be on the radio when I was growing up, I could have heard it, but like I'm absolutely nowhere near familiar with it.
I mean, like, I'm not familiar with trap music as a genre either, really, because I never really attached myself to it the
Yeah,
way I have with, like, other hip hop variants. You
yeah.
know, like, what about, like, Post Malone? Do you know who that is?
I know who it is. No,
Okay.
wait.
He's like a
Oh yeah.
kind of he's
Oh wait,
sort
I know.
of he's like on the
I
edges
have
of
like,
trap music. He's not like hardcore like Migos, but he still has like that drony kind of somber, sleepy
Alyssa,
tone to him.
Alyssa, the only reason why I know who Post Malone is because he sung a couple of songs in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Wait, they got Post Malone for that? Oh my
Yeah, they
god.
got Post Malone for that. How have you not seen it?
I haven't seen the movie yet. I've been sleeping on it. I need to see it. I've been waiting for it to come on DVD. My library just got it, so I'll
Yeah,
probably watch it like soon. But
do
yeah,
it
I will.
now.
And
I don't
like,
care. End the podcast. Go watch Spider-Verse.
we'll just like cut it off right now. We'll be back as soon as in like a couple hours after I've watched it. Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, I think that this also I would say that if you're very allergic to rap music, I think that this is also it's like a very good baby's first hip hop. And
Which
and
is how
look and
it
look
was
and look, that's
for
not an insult to Hamilton at all. Like, I'm not calling Hamilton basic at all. I'm just saying that like the rap music in Hamilton is not pushing any boundaries in terms of
no.
like rap music. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't use the N-word at all. It doesn't talk about banging chicks and drinking or anything. It's not like Childish Gambino's This Is
Well,
America.
I mean, there are songs that do discuss banging chicks.
Oh well, yeah, but you know what I mean, like in like a very vulgar way,
Oh yeah, I got you.
or like it's not as socially conscious as something
Yeah,
like Gangster Paradise,
yeah.
or like I said, This Is America. Those kinds of songs are definitely pushing boundaries, but um
Yeah.
so I would say also that like if you've always been kind of not too keen on rap music, I would say this soundtrack is a good starting point. If only because I think it definitely needs to play a lot safe too in some ways. Like, it can't be total rap. Like
Yeah.
like part of me, the part of the thing that's frustrating to me about this music, like, I think the music's great. I have no qualms about this music. But my problem is that like part of me wishes that they had just gone full rap, whole ham, full rap, no Broadway sheen at all, just all
Full
rap
Ham
song.
Olsen.
Damn it! How are you getting all the good jokes this time? Yeah,
I am in my element.
you are. Like, part of me wishes that they had gone full, whole hardcore rap. Because I think that rap has, like I said, rap has a lot of potential. And as I said, because rap kind of originated from like performance poetry, or like
Yeah.
that kind of spitballing, I think it has a lot of potential in a stage show. Just pure
Yeah.
rap without any Broadway-ness to it. But I think it works, right? Like, I totally do.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I know it
Yeah.
was like a lot of words about this music from a very theoretical / general standpoint. Why don't I turn it over to you and you can talk about it a little more from your perspective?
So yeah. This is definitely not pure rap. Obviously there's a lot of more traditional Broadway songs in here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not so traditional, but like you get what I'm saying.
Right. It has the structure
Like
of a Broadway musical
yeah,
or a Broadway
like
song.
Hurricane. That is
I'm trying to remember which song that is.
night of a hurricane. There is quiet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, towards the end of the show, that
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry, like I said,
Then
I haven't listened to this. I haven't listened as much as you have, so some of the songs
then
are a little
also
vague
got
to me.
the couple of the handful of songs from King George, which is definitely not, definitely
No,
not rap.
no, and
That's
honestly,
also the point.
well, yeah,
That's like
honestly,
jazz.
I was gonna say having King George not rap is definitely a good stylistic choice. I
Oh yeah,
think
absolutely.
since he's he's the only white guy. Like, why would you have the only white guy rap? You know, that makes complete and total sense because King George is supposed to represent like the old regime, so having him not rap is completely reasonable. So,
but also all of his songs are great. His songs are great.
Yeah, I love his songs. They're so energized and they're so fun.
Yeah. And even still, all these songs still have the strong lyrical poetry quality you were talking about.
Oh yeah, they definitely do.
There's such great wordplay, such greatness, but also there is a lot of music that is important, which is the big thing you're saying is different from rap, is that rap, it just lives or dies on the lyrics.
Yeah.
Where a number of these songs
or rhythm too
do also live on the music itself. Like I started this off with the bum ba da da dum bum ba da da da.
Yeah.
It's like that's just in my head for life now.
Yeah. And I do think that Broadway, like, and I really do, like I said, I think that the strength that this soundtrack has is that you can tell Lin-Manuel Miranda understands both Broadway and rap music and has sort of combined them into this really interesting combination. Unlike other musicals that bastardize songs that I love, that Elvis musical that absolutely destroys, what's the song?
Jailhouse Rock?
No, not Jailhouse Rock.
But that's the show, right?
Oh yeah, that show. So one of the songs that I absolutely love, Can't Help Falling in Love with You. That song, so in that musical, as a example of how not to adapt popular music / old rock to Broadway, Can't Help Falling in Love with You is supposed to be a very, like, kind of soft ballad. It's supposed to feel very personal, right? It's supposed to feel intimate. Yeah. You know, Elvis's voice is very large sounding, but like the backing is very minimal. It's like just like some background singers, maybe some guitar. There's not a lot going on. In the musical, they turn it into a show-stopping huge musical number, and I hate it because it's like, well, what's the point of the song? The point of the song is like a serenade, right? You're supposed to serenade your lover, telling them about how you're in love with them, and it's amazing. How turning it into a huge show-stopping number completely destroys the point of the song. And I hate the musical for it. If I don't even care. Like, I don't care if the musical's great. Like, they ruined it. Yeah. But that's just a rant for another day. But my point is that it's very easy. Applying Broadway-ness to a song doesn't always work. And I think it would have been super easy for this to be a total disaster. And for them to have like kind of to have only done the hip hop gimmick as like a gimmick, you know, like as a like, oh, look at us being all hip and fresh with our hip hop, and meanwhile it's like so yeah. But overall, like I said, I think there aren't a lot of duds in the soundtrack. From what I recall anyway. I think probably the ones that I wasn't as intrigued with were the more, like I said, the more basic Broadway tunes. I think the ones with Eliza in it, I wasn't too keen on.
Oh.
Like, I like them. I like them. I do, okay? I like them. They're good. My point, like, in comparison to, like, the rapping, though. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like,
I gotcha.
Like, I'll be honest, like, I'm not saying that the music itself is, like, basic, but I'm saying that in comparison to the other more genre-pushing work, the Eliza sections are very musically in the sense that I could probably, like, it's nothing new, at least in terms of musical songs, right? Like you could conceivably put the Eliza parts, not necessarily in other musicals, but like in Eliza, that kind of song could be written in other musicals and haven't written in other musicals. So, you know, they're good songs. Just, it kind of pales, in my opinion, they kind of pale in comparison to like the edgier stuff. And again, I think the King George ones are just so energized that I'm like, I love them. Whereas the Eliza ones are just kind of very, I don't know. Sure. They're not bad. They're not bad. They're not bad. I just don't like them as much. Like, if the rest of the soundtrack is a 10 out of 10, the Eliza ones are a 9.5 out of 10. Like,
okay.
Does that make you feel better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I'm not like I'm not trying to say the Eliza sections are sucky. Yeah. I'm just saying that they're not. I didn't get as much enjoyment out of them as the other other tracks on the soundtrack.
Yeah. Which there are a lot of. I think it's 46 songs?
Yeah, a lot of them. And honestly, it's weird because when I was listening to the soundtrack, I listened to it less as individual songs and more as just a whole package.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I don't have like a favorite song. It's more like favorite moments within those songs or favorite musical phrases. You know what I mean?
Okay. So then with that, what are your favorite musical phrases?
I think the leitmotifs I love the, Aaron Burr, sir. That repeated motif is great. I think it solidifies the rhythm aspect of the whole soundtrack. The King George ones are wonderful. I love the harpsichord usage. I love how out of place the harpsichord is in the rest of the soundtrack. It just makes it just immediately, like, I love how, despite the fact that the King George ones are just so divorced from everything else, it still fits. I don't know how he did it, but he did it, and I'm just like, oh my god. I also think, like I said, I really like just like the back and forth arguments in the Continental Congress ones with the disses. There were some really great disses that I can't remember them because it's been a while since I listened to the soundtrack, but there were some times where I literally paused and I was just like, oh, he said it. It was great.
So there's one. So I'm just gonna say this because I'm gonna have to look it up for you later.
Sure.
Lin-Manuel Miranda has talked about some stuff that he had to cut from shows and has recorded some of it.
Okay.
I think this. No, I think no. Okay, because also there's been an album. There was an album that was released after Hamilton that was both concept tracks that never got made into the finished show, as well as covers, and then more proper rap tracks. I honestly think you might like the second album a bit more because there's a lot more traditional rap songs.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's one particular bit that I'm reminded of, because again, I'm not sure if you're gonna remember this, but there's when it's the Adams administration and they're talking about the change of power and then how Hamilton's fired. Hamilton was going to have an entire minute-long diss about John Adams before his line of "Sit down, John, you fat mother."
Oh my god, I love it.
I forget exactly what happened, but
that's amazing because John Adams was quite a portly man. So.
Yeah. Yeah,
I feel like John Adams is the definition of portly white dude, his body type. And I can diss John Adams. He's been dead for 200 years. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll have to
more for you. Yeah. Yeah, I'd be totally interested in that.
Yeah. This is great, but he had to cut it for reasons. I mean, probably time, but
yeah. So overall, I'd say the music is definitely the bomb diggity. And as I've said before, I recommend it for people who like musicals. I also recommend it for people who who might not like one genre, but are at least interested enough to try it. I think this is a very good middle ground. And then if you find this interesting, then you could try music from other ends of the genres and see how you like them. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about the music? Maybe do you have a favorite song? Because I don't. Because like I said, I sort of viewed it as a whole package rather than individual songs. So. Genuinely,
I think my overall favorite song, since I've listened to enough to divide it up that way, is The Room Where It Happens.
Right. Yeah. No. That one does. That one is really good. I do like the this is the room that it happens. The room that it happens. It has. See, I have only listened to the soundtrack twice, and I still have that tune in my head. So I think that speaks to the song's catchiness.
Though I
So
also very much love Lafayette's rap in Guns and Ships.
he was the French dude, right?
Yeah, he was the French dude.
Yeah, that was really funny. I liked that too.
Yeah.
That's right,
It
because the
was,
French were very much involved in the Revolutionary War.
yep.
A lot of people forget that, but they were. Also
Oh yeah.
Germans too, I think, but to a lesser extent, and
Yeah.
Spain potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A bit.
yeah. So yeah.
So I'd say those are probably my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Though another bit is during the duel between Hamilton and Burr.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously.
So I don't know if you can remember, but you know how like there were a couple of moments where Burr was doing his verse,
Mm-hmm.
and then that there were a couple of moments where Hamilton doubled on him.
Maybe that's a little vaguer to me.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I just want to say that there was also going to be another verse,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to be from Hamilton's perspective. So they're
Oh,
both talking about each other, and then they have a couple of things that overlap.
amazing.
Um, but I forget why he said he cut that. I think there was a more specific, like how the scene was seen reason.
Right.
Maybe because, like, well, I mean, Hamilton died, so we don't necessarily know, or it's because of the what he had while he was getting shot
Yeah.
before he raised his pistol to the sky. Um, but yeah.
I've got like stains on my desk here. Anyway.
So shout out to right hand man that manages to throw in a line from crap. What's the show? Throwing a line from Modern Major General, the song Modern Major General.
I think I know what song you're talking about, but because I'm not a Broadway person, I don't think I've ever heard it, or at least if I have, it's heard it in snippets. Which is it
Yeah,
from South
the
Pacific?
thing you probably heard is the I am a modern major general.
Yeah, maybe. What
Yeah.
show is it from?
I forget. It's not actually a traditional musical in a sense, but it's usually performed. Why am I blanking so hard? Why am I failing? Why am I
It's
failing at being a
okay.
musical
You're
theater?
not required to like be an expert in everything musicals. They're fine.
Yeah, and
Um
I know Noah was in this show recently too. I didn't get a chance to go see it, but he was in it. Modern Major General is from Pirates of Penzance.
Oh wow, I've never heard of that musical before. So
Yeah,
okay. It
yeah,
makes
it's actually
sense that I was unsure.
technically an opera. It's actually technically an opera.
Oh, okay.
But it is popular enough that it is oft performed with musicals or as a
Gotcha.
musical. Um,
So, okay, so do you have we
but I love the
talked?
sound regardless.
Yep. Do you think we've mentioned everything about the music that we wanted to mention? I think I have. I spoke a lot about it.
I think, I think so.
Okay, so then
Uh,
the next thing is plot, I guess.
yeah,
I mean, like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if there's like that much to talk about plot wise. Like, there were no like real twists and turns, as we've said before.
yeah.
It's just
Like if
kind
you knew
of
the story,
the life of Hamilton.
it's a historical musical.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
but
honestly, I'm probably more interested in talking more about like the way, like sort of the way Alexander Hamilton's life is portrayed in this musical, rather than like just
yeah,
strictly talking about
yes,
events and the way they
yes,
happen. Because
yes,
like I said, it's the life of Alexander Hamilton. And Alexander Hamilton is a very interesting man. So like
yes,
this, out of I mean, all the founding fathers are very interesting people. Like honestly,
yeah,
you have George Washington, who is who was very interesting man. Um, he was a general. Had I think he was quite here for the religious freedom thing, which is
yeah,
interesting. You have Ben Franklin, who was a Puritan, and who might have been hip with the ladies, and who invented
yeah,
bifocals, and
yeah.
Yeah, he was an interesting bro. I mean, Thomas Jefferson. Enough said. He was honestly,
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson is probably like the weirdest one out of all of them.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. He was Christian, but like he was like a weird Christian. He literally mangled his own Bible and cut out all the irrelevant parts that he thought were relevant, and then just kept. He made his own Bible.
He was a Francophile.
He was. He was a weird man.
Yeah.
He was a weird man.
Yeah, but then we get Alexander Hamilton up in here too.
Oh, well, yeah, he's also a weird man. I mean, like, honestly, like, I feel like people who are like, let's make our own country, they're gonna be some oddballs in there.
Yeah.
But it's so incredible to me to, like, when you read up about these, like, founding fathers, how odd they are. Or how not normal each of their stories are, which is cool.
Yeah.
Thankfully, luckily for the story, I think he's one of he's one of the few, if not the only, founding father who did not actively own slaves. So,
yes,
they didn't have to walk that tightrope. So that's good.
Nope.
You know, because there's always
one of the
keep going.
Yeah, he was very vocal against the slaves.
Yeah, was he an active abolitionist? Would he have been considered an abolitionist?
He was an abolitionist.
Or was he more like just, slaves aren't for me?
No, he was abolitionist. He worked a fair bit with John Lawrence, who was very vocal about abolition.
Okay, I mean, like, I know that there were abolitionists in the late 1700s. I just was like, because there is a like sort of range of like non-slave owners in that era. There's like the super abolitionists on the one end, and then there's the I don't really care, I just don't own slaves end, you know. So
I'm pretty sure he assisted with like the pamphlets and the saying, hey, don't stuff.
You're right, yeah. So, because like I don't know,
but
it could have been
trying to help run a new country. So,
oh yeah, but I think it is important to note that just for context, that being an abolitionist in late 1700s America was a radical position.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how radical, but like he would have definitely in today's modern era been considered a progressive, politically. So. Because slavery was very much normalized. Like, it was just a thing that happened. So, what's really interesting is, but I think we'll talk, you know what? I'm going to stop talking about it here because I actually do want to get into more about slavery. I know this is like a stupid, like, I know like we typically try not to talk about anything too political on this channel, but honestly, like, talking about slavery is kind of unavoidable with this musical, so... I would say I do want to talk about it a little bit, but I'll save that more for like the latter part of the podcast when we talk more about the like not necessarily criticisms, but like the backlash / criticisms that have been lobbed at Hamilton, because I think slavery plays into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, honestly I think I'm more interested in talking about like sort of the way in which Hamilton portrays Alexander Hamilton's life. And I actually have a question for you, because you seem to know more about Alexander Hamilton than me.
Yeah.
Like I know enough about him, obviously, but like I'm not a scholar, so it seems like you have more of a passing knowledge than I do. But would you say how much dramatization do you think Hamilton does in the play? Like, because like obviously I'd argue that it is nearly, if not completely impossible, to avoid dramatization in any kind of fictionalization, any kind of representation of someone's life.
Okay, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
I will also say from Lin-Manuel, who worked on this musical for 8 years, I think.
Oh, wow, okay.
The first time that the public heard a song was at the White House when Obama was sworn in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or like a gala not too long after.
Yeah.
Was when we heard the first draft, one of the earliest complete drafts of the opening song. It was different in a fair few ways. I think it was that. Maybe it was. No, yeah, I think it was that early 2009. Yeah.
Yeah. He was sworn in
So
2009. 10 years ago,
yeah,
actually.
yeah. So he's been working on this for a while, and from what I remember him saying, yeah, the musical is like basically how Lin-Manuel Miranda thinks Hamilton would have behaved in real life. Like
Right.
the actions he does, how extreme his responses are, his behavior towards the specific individuals,
Mm-hmm.
from not only just how he wrote his stuff, but also how much he wrote.
Right. Oh yeah, he was a very prolific author.
Yes.
I feel like he would put like the writers of like really like cheap romance novels to shame. Like
Yeah.
he wrote so much. He had a lot
Yeah.
of time on his hands then if he was writing so much, honestly. Or he was just crazy and didn't stop writing or didn't sleep, which
Right.
yeah, I mean like might have been true. Who knows?
Yeah. And like how he made a newspaper literally to just badmouth Jefferson.
Yeah, that's right. That you know what? If he was alive today and he had a Twitter, I would follow
Yeah.
the hell out of his Twitter.
Oh, yeah,
he
absolutely.
he'd be that guy on Twitter who would have all the hot takes, and he would start Twitter feuds with Thomas Jefferson all the time. Yeah. And you can't tell me that a modern day version of Alexander would not have Twitter. He would definitely he would tweet all the time.
Absolutely.
And I would live for it. Anyway.
And this was a meme I saw when I was on Tumblr, when I actively use Tumblr quite frequently in regards to the musical.
Yeah.
I've dissed everyone. Now it's time to diss myself. The Reynolds pamphlet.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, and I honestly think, like, again, I feel like when it comes to doing a musical,
that's another thing about,
about the founding of the country, choosing Alexander Hamilton as your main protagonist I think was the best choice, because, like I said, you don't have to worry about the slavery thing. Alexander Hamilton's viewpoints on the world are the most closely aligned to our present day morality. Like, I don't know if I mean, obviously there are probably some things that he wouldn't agree with, but I think amongst the founding fathers, I think he's like the best choice. But
and then that's another thing. Literally, he wrote an entire pamphlet discussing an affair that he had, just to make sure.
He wrote about that?
What did you think the Reynolds pamphlet was?
Oh, that's right. Oh, I remember now. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
I had a brain fart.
But yeah, he wrote about the affair, published it, just so as the guys that approached him about potential money laundering.
Yeah, no, I remember that too. He was under
him.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know what? If you're gonna own it, right?
Yeah. And he owned it. He owned it big time.
He owned it so big. That's right. Because, like, one of the big things about Alexander Hamilton is that his affair was one of the first true political scandals of America.
Yes. Yes.
Because, of course, it had... And out of all the founders, who else would it be but Alexander Hamilton? Obviously.
Right.
Like,
right?
You think George Washington is going to be caught in a political scandal? Like, no. The only other person...
I mean, Jefferson could.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, he's the other dude who might have been, like, yeah.
And then technically Burr, too, because, you know, the whole, the Hamilton-Burr duel.
That's true, too, yeah. Yep.
So that
was... Also, like, imagine your not your best friend, your rival dude who you don't get along with. You're running for president, and then you're like, oh man, Alexander Hamilton's but like hates, like, imagine having like a guy who you don't get along with, but you at least maybe respect, disses you in favor of a guy who gets along with even less. Like, damn.
Yeah, really.
Like oh my god, like really? You're gonna back the dude who you've spent like 5 million like arguments arguing over, and not me, the guy that you've had like only 1 million arguments with? What kind of bull crap is this?
They were law partners. Hamilton and Burr were law partners early on.
Yeah, that's true. They were. So it's kind of so
They're
like,
not rivals per se. They're just strange acquaintances, I'd
yeah,
say.
yeah. So I can totally get like I'm not saying Burr was right in killing Hamilton. All I'm saying is like I get it. I get his motive. Like I'd be pissed too.
Yeah.
I'd be like, dude, we had an amicable relationship, and here you are dissing me and favoring this other guy who I don't like either. Like, what are you doing? What's up with that? How dare? So yeah.
I have the honor to be
I
your
guess the
obedient
real
servant.
point that I want to bring up too is I think the real strength of this play is sort of bringing this sort of really great humanizing element to the story of the Founding Fathers. I think a lot of people sort of view the Founding Fathers as these like mythical beings, not really in that sense, but like definitely their humanity has sort of been scrubbed out of them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, there's
So
okay. I'm
yeah.
time to bring Transformers into this.
We have to. It's one of our contract, part of our contract that we don't have.
I've had a discussion recently with Eric and Miguel, talking about like how when Optimus Prime is portrayed, it's more he's portrayed as the idea of Optimus Prime rather than
right
a person. More so, like he's this great, powerful figure to look up to that can do no wrong.
right
But he's less a being with faults and foibles and whatnot. And it started with the 2007 movie, honestly, where it's like, look at this idea of Optimus Prime, and
right.
that's what other continuities have been. But the G1 version wasn't. He had his quips, he had his foibles. He
Of course.
he trash talked Megatron in the midst of battle.
I mean, they're bitter exes. What else are they gonna do?
He'd hang out with their human companion, and he'd try to play basketball a bit.
Yep.
And play football with the troops. I think he was also one of the fans amongst the Autobots of soap operas. But like, this is what I'm getting at. Like original, and like it's the same here with like the Founding Fathers, that they're like great people of perfect stature. They can do no wrong. They are infallible. They're not.
I mean, they owned people. Most of them. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially that. That part. But we do also have George Washington admitting his wrongs on the show and saying he was never perfect.
Of course not.
Like he's still pretty well up there in terms of reveredness.
Yeah.
Because like, holy heck, is there a huge moment when it's time for him to go?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think one of the things, because like whenever you talk about the life of a historical person, like I think that is really important, especially with people who are as historically remembered as, you know, the Founding Fathers, right? Like trying to portray them in a way that's humanizing and also true to life too. Because like they're people. They were people just like you and me. I mean, maybe not just like me, but like you know what I mean? Like they had they pooped, you know? You probably don't think as often about the fact that they defecated, but they certainly did. They did it in outhouses. It was gross. I'm sure they've had diarrhea at some point in their life too.
They didn't shower. They didn't shower.
Oh, they never did. I think I think it's funny. I think I've heard jokes of people being like, if you were to go back in time and like
everyone would stink.
Yeah, if you went back in time, the first thing you notice is like, why does everyone smell like crap? It's because they didn't shower. And that's why perfume was so much more used back then, because you got to make sure you smell nice to cover the horrible, horrible, horrible BO. So yeah, and I think I definitely respect Hamilton for that, but I also respect Hamilton for not being afraid to sort of put those figures in those like less than kind lights. I feel like a lot of people might feel the need to like preserve the humility or the like their legacy in a respectful way. And I think especially with like political figures that are either A, still alive, or B, only recently died, there's that like tendency to You know, like I haven't seen Bohemian Rhapsody, mostly because I heard it was an movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I was not too eager to see it because I mean Freddie Mercury only really died like what 20 years ago? He died in the
Yeah.
90s, right? Yeah, so like I wasn't very comfortable watching a biopic about him because his legacy is he it's too, you know, hashtag too soon, you know. Whereas with the founding fathers, I think it's extremely important to talk about his life in a respectful way.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it can't be done. Like I'm not saying that a more recent or living historical figure can't be portrayed in a respectful or well-meaning way. But I am saying I think it's a little more difficult to do it in a way that I think audiences can handle and will like. So, like, okay, like I'm always like, so there's this trend in books because you know I read blood books. There's this recent trend in books to talk about not like a biography, but like a fictionalized version of someone's life. Like there's a book that's coming out that's going to be about Harriet Tubman, and it's
Mhm.
about her life, but it's not a biography. It's a fictionalized story specifically,
Okay.
which is weird. And they've done it before with other people. I think they've done it a couple times with Winston Churchill's a big one,
Yeah.
like a big one. There's so many books that have come out about Winston Churchill. It's kind of weird. I mean, it's not weird. He was a very important political figure, so it makes sense. But I like, where do you? So I guess my question is like, so you would consider Hamilton to be not fiction? Would you consider it to be like on par with a biopic in terms of its
Yes.
accuracy to real events? Okay.
Yes. Again, like
Obviously, it doesn't have the tone of a biopic, but like,
oh, absolutely not. Not the tone, but like in terms of its accuracy, very reasonable to a biopic.
mm,
Again, a few details were changed just to help streamline the story. Like I mentioned before,
right.
Eliza had male siblings. Another big point was the people that confronted Hamilton about the missing money
Yeah.
were not people that were involved in the show at all.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They were important figures within the government at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't happen to be those.
Oh, okay. But you would argue
Maybe
that like there isn't any like huge liberties being taken with the story.
no, no.
Okay.
Again, like I said, it's and again in that instance, it's not that event didn't happen. It didn't happen with those same
Right.
exact people.
So like
I
okay.
think Madison was there. I think Madison was in fact there.
Right. Cuz like
Um,
I'm trying to think of like I don't know. Have you what do you think cuz like I honestly I'm not the biggest person when it comes to reading about or watching things about famous people, you know? And like obviously there are different ways in which historical figures are framed, right? There are fictional stories. Like I would argue that like not every time you talk about a historical person, you talk about or have a historical person in your whatever, you have to be respectful, right? And in some
yeah,
cases, you shouldn't be. Like the producers craps all over Hitler, but like you know he deserves it, so
yeah,
that's totally fine. And it's a comedy, so it makes sense. But
yeah.
I guess like yeah, but I personally, especially with figures that aren't uh like I always find it a little weird whenever there was a book that also came out about Teddy Roosevelt and it was
Yeah.
also kind of fictionalized. So it wasn't a
Okay.
straight biography about him. It was just a fictional
Okay.
story about his life. It was weird. So I guess to you would say that like you'd also be kind of turned off about like a pure fiction, like a story that's marketed as a fiction story
Yes.
who in which the main character is an actual person who existed.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I also feel like weird too cuz even for a person who existed like even someone who like really old person who's been dead for like years like
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like a
Shakespeare.
super Shakespeare, yeah, even like Anonymous, That Roland Emmerich movie. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that one. That one kind of, or like Shakespeare in Love. Doesn't Shakespeare in Love have William Shakespeare as a main character, and doesn't that take
I'm not,
liberties with his life?
I'm not positive.
I haven't seen it.
There was a TV show that came out when I was living in Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
just called Will, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm very interested in this," because I thought it was going to be an idea of his life.
Mm-hmm.
It did feel fairly fictionalized,
Uh.
and it kind of turned me off. I
Yeah.
mean, like, fe like because there's
Mm-hmm.
like it seemed like a lot of the greater strokes were accurate. Um,
Right.
but from my understanding of some things, not that wasn't quite right. Especially when you take into the fact that actually Shakespeare didn't completely write all of his plays
Okay. Yeah. I didn't
because
know. Right.
at the time, because genuinely at the time, most works were a collaboration of some form. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, they were just billed under one person's name. He probably did most of the work in most of his pieces, but there were definitely scenes and whatnot that like there was someone else that wrote them.
Right.
And I remember when we did in the Shakespeare Club, there were a couple of plays where we joked like when like scenes would just randomly jump from prose to verse, and we're like, okay, who is it? And
Who's the random collaborator this time who ruined it? Not ruined it, but like randomly
no,
changed
actually,
things.
I forget which one it was, but I think we knew who the collaborator was for that one. We were just like, oh, well, Shakespeare went off to the market to get milk again. Uh, uh, Left him
Yeah.
to write another scene in prose.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I like yeah, I know this is like only tangentially related to Hamlet, but it kind of is, right? Like
yeah,
and I guess a follow-up question, do you like cuz like I mentioned before, Hamilton isn't like a biopic tone. It's not serious. It is very faithful to his life, but it's not portraying it like a lifetime drama, if you will.
correct.
it's
Like
it's it's
here's
trying it's taking it, but it's in a weird way. Do you think that's how do you think that like do you think that people might, if people might see that as like cheapening his life by not having that serious tone, or do you
no,
think it works in
no. I
that? I
think
mean, I know you think it works, but like why do you think it works, I guess, is my question.
well, let's one thing I do want to say, like obviously Hamilton did not sing these songs in his life. He did not rap.
No, that's a
Uh,
framing. That's a meta thing.
yeah, that's a meta thing. But
That's like the equivalent of literary illusion, literary
yeah,
literary language in theater.
yeah,
Like it's
but
understood that like the
yeah,
rap battles are representative of the actual
yeah,
arguments that happened in Congress,
yeah.
or the Continental Congress, I guess.
Oh yeah, agreed. But this, but it helps. I mean, Hamilton. I mean, Lin-Manuel definitely is like aware of
Mm-hmm.
this. I'm certain was aware of this and was like putting this stuff in, but the medium through which it's presented prevents it from getting so lifetime drama stuck up on itself,
Right.
um, which would also go into the whole look at these figures to hold up to
Right.
that, which is not what's happening here. The
Mm-hmm.
medium allows for freeness, it allows for lightness. Like
Yeah.
again, like some of these songs are bops, and like the room where it happens is a slaps, and like it's Burr having a moment questioning what the hell is going on in this one room that's deciding so many important things about the country.
Yeah.
If we had evidence that he Burr had a speech outside the doors of the meeting room where Hamilton, Jefferson, and Madison were talking about that thing, that would
Mm-hmm.
be so melodramatically presented.
It would be, yeah.
But here it's like, yes, like you understand the importance of it,
Mm-hmm.
but you also get it because like, and to go into the music a bit too,
Mm-hmm.
uh because we're not always indulged in the same energy or motion. Like there's a continuous through line through everything, yes, but like let's not like rap song, rap song, rap song, rap song, rock song. We've got variations and like
Yeah.
more upbeat songs, and then we've got some more down songs and
Yeah.
more up songs, and
Yeah. It's flexible.
it moves. There's variety, and
Mm-hmm.
but it always engages and interests you because it is different from what came before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Towards the end, a bit more, it's on this
Mm-hmm.
path that know the end is coming, and we need to see it goes and how
Yeah.
it gets there. Um,
Unrelated, but also kind of related. How do you feel about the Elton John movie that's coming out, Rocket Man? Because I've seen some trailers for it recently.
I'm not sure. I'm also the one thing I know I'm not happy about is that Yesterday movie.
Oh, is that? Oh, is it a Beatles movie?
Yeah, it's a Beatles movie.
Oh boy.
The premise
Aren't like
is
half of more than 3/4 of the people still alive?
no, half of them are dead.
Oh, which ones are alive? Is Ringo's alive, right?
Ringo's alive,
Paul
and
McCartney too, right?
yes, it's Paul McCartney.
Okay, I know John Lennon's dead, and
Yeah,
I
so is
forget who the
Harrison.
third guy is.
George Harrison.
George Harrison. Okay. He has a very okay. I'm gonna be no okay. Slight
That's a very
shade.
bland name.
He has a lame name. He has a lame name. Okay.
Yeah.
George Harrison, you have a lame name. You just gotta get over it. Okay. I don't care that I'm dissing George Harrison. I'm gonna diss him right now. You have a kind of a lame
How
name.
dare you diss a dead man?
Yeah, how dare I? So
And
yeah. I don't know. It's also kind of weird when I saw that they made a biopic about Stephen Hawking while he was still alive too. I don't know. Biopics are weird for me. Some of them are probably good. I just like they aren't a genre that really appeal to me because I always feel like they're gonna dramatize someone's life, and it's like, ooh. I feel more comfortable with biography, like book biographies.
yeah.
Honestly, like not that book biographies can't be super sensationalized / dramatized. They obviously can, and they probably are for a lot of them. But I feel like at least with books, there's less of a tendency to like go for the showiness of it, especially like the super long ones. Like, have you seen some of them? Like, there are some that are like over 500 pages long. There's one that recently came out about Ronald Reagan that was like this thick, and I was like, oh my god, that's a lot.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, at least for me, that's how I personally prefer to engage with material about someone's life. I prefer for it to be, if it's gonna be, I prefer it to be very factually resourced. So, but anyway, so now I kind of wanted to talk about, I wanted to talk now about the okay, so remember that slavery thing that I mentioned earlier?
Yes.
So I'm going to kind of bring it back a little bit. So, because I want to talk about the racial aspect of this play. Because I think
absolutely.
I think
that is
race relations is a large part of this play in a lot of ways. And like I said, I know we typically don't get political on this show unless we have to, but I think in this case we have to. Yeah. Like, there's no way not to talk about the race part of this show, because I think it's very, very instrumental to its entire presentation.
That is one of the biggest things about the show. This is about the founding fathers, who are all predominantly white, and not a single one of them is casted as white.
Yeah, and that's very much an intentional choice by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Intentional, and as Lin-Manuel stated, to better represent America as a whole, in all honesty.
Yeah. I do definitely think it is probably, like, even outside of the rap parts, I think it's probably the most subversive aspect of the play. And like the only real, like, true liberty being taken here in terms of historical accuracy, as it were. Because in a lot of ways, minorities were a large part of the country.
Absolutely.
You know, like they were there, they were a large part of it, and I think it's definitely a statement on part of the author, part of Lin-Manuel Miranda too. It's, you know, and I think it is significant again that King George is the only white guy in the whole thing, right? Like, like
absolutely.
I think definitely the racial aspect kind of, it sort of like it's telling the story of the founding of the country, but it's almost in a lot of ways sort of a commentary on like the American journey as a whole, in the sense that like the real rebels or the real people who are making and shaking the changes tend to be the minorities of, you know, like the people who are really stepping outside and doing things that are considered revolutionary, at least definitely in today's world, and obviously in the past as well, as opposed to like white people who represent more of a status quo. So it makes sense for that to be there. I don't know. What do you have to say about this aspect of it? Because I like to me, that's the most interesting part of this play, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, besides Hamilton, who is of Puerto Rican descent.
Oh yeah, he is. That's right. He is of Puerto Rican descent. I remember that. He was like a bastard, right?
Yeah. He's a bastard, orphan, mother.
Yeah. He's the only person of color in the whole cast, IRL, really.
Yeah, he's the only one of IRL. He's an immigrant purely because of the fact that Puerto Rico was not owned by the U.S. at the time, or was it the same nationality, though now it is. So he's not an immigrant from Puerto Rico. He's just from Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. Gosh darn it, because people don't know that apparently. No. I'm getting more political than we were intending, but I mean,
like, it's relevant.
It is very relevant.
Like I said here, like it's impossible for us not to talk about this element of it. So absolutely. And again, that also does help position the story, right? Like reminding us that Alexander Hamilton wasn't white, really, especially not at the time.
No.
Right? Like, not at the time.
Like, I think his father was like Scottish, but like his mother was from Puerto Rico. He lived and was raised in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And he moved to America for a better life.
Yeah. So he was, so like the idea, I think that this, I think
the interesting thing is his is a story of like the traditional America story of like the people from any background pulling themselves up and becoming something great.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a Puerto Rican and an immigrant.
Right. And I think what's
ancestry, an immigrant.
And I think it reminds people
get the job done.
Damn. Calling those shots anyway. Yeah, and I think a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm not throwing away my shot.
I think a lot of people forget that Alexander Hamilton, or might not even be aware of that aspect of Alexander Hamilton. You know, this idea that like America was always like white majority from the beginning. Well, no. Here's a guy who was part of the founding fathers who was like Puerto Rican and was an immigrant. So it's been there the whole time. And I think that's what that play is kind of edging into. It's like trying to bring to the surface. And I do think that if you tried to do this play with an all-white cast, it would not work. It would feel really weird.
I am horrified when schools get the rights to this show and just how god darn white the casts are going to be. It's going to be so much worse than In the Heights when I was in it.
Yeah, I know. Because, like, again, it completely loses a whole aspect of the play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Miguel, if you happen to be listening to this, I don't know if you will, because this is not your forte.
No.
But when we were in the Heights, we were told that Puerto Ricans are not all the same similar skin tone. There were some Puerto Ricans. There's a substantial amount of Puerto Ricans that do have more paler skin tone, so we were able to at least pass comfortably.
Yeah.
Uh, some of us were definitely way too white.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but again, my point is that wasn't ideal. But like we could get away with it to an extent. In this doing, I guess technically it would be a whitewash casting.
Yeah. Like
Is
that's the
not
part of it.
Yeah, it is not inaccurate to the history,
Oh no.
but it's missing the point of the musical.
Right, yeah. That's the thing.
That's the bigger thing. It's not.
Right.
It wouldn't be inaccurate to get a white person to be George Washington and Madison and John Lawrence,
Right.
but
It would
yeah,
just yeah, I would be missing the point.
yeah,
So now that we've laid that down, I wanted to, because this is sort of related. So, because of how popular Hamilton is, it obviously has gotten a lot of criticism slash things levied at it. And so, okay, this is not. Now, I want to preface this isn't necessarily something I think. I'm not sure if I have any like big criticisms.
I think I know what you're going to say.
But so when I was working at the library, I mean, I still do, obviously, but like one night I was, there was a presentation that I was, I was on shift while it was happening, and it was about slavery in where I live, which is in New Jersey. So we were talking about slavery in New Jersey, and sort of the happenings and how we know that slavery happened here and the conditions and like, you know, which families were huge slave owners at the time, you know, abolition, like there's all about that. And in passing, obviously he didn't focus on this, but in passing, he did mention some research that an article, like I don't know if it was like, I think it was literary criticism or criticism that had been lobbied at Hamilton, specifically related to enslaved people. Because Hamilton, while it does have a all black, not all black, but all people of color casting, there are no slaves in the show as characters, I believe, right?
Indeed.
I mean, they are mentioned, obviously, like, you know that they exist, mentioned, but they do not exist in terms of named characters. So, sure. I don't know what the article said, but it was. My point is that a lot of people have criticized Hamilton for this slavery's absence, like their physical absence, right? Yeah. Like I guess the criticism is that like how much, like obviously there's this element of sort of trying to use the casting choices as sort of a way to reclaim the story of America for people who are disadvantaged. You know, this idea of like the people of color are just as much of an importance to the founding of the country as anybody else. But at the same time, not having slaves as an aspect that's visible on stage could be read as like that could be read as historical revisionism in some ways, right? Yeah. Like it definitely softens it.
I get what you're saying, and this isn't actually this isn't where I thought you were going on.
Okay.
Too, but we'll address this.
So I mean I can obviously see, I can see the argument. I don't know where I stand on it. I see the argument, you know, like yes, I don't know if it ruins the play, because like I said, they do mention slavery. It is a thing that is mentioned, but it isn't like a thing that is discussed in any real tangible way. So I guess the criticism is sort of like, is it historical revisionism not to have slavery as a forefront thing, especially considering that the show has racial stuff as a forefront issue? And two, like, is it like, in the, like, again, historical revisionism, like are we really reclaiming anything if we don't actively acknowledge the pain and suffering of slavery and its reality in this in this era? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
So I guess that's why I wanted to know what your response to that
I mean,
was.
as we've discussed, slavery is not absent. It is brought up. It is a
Mm-hmm.
thing that is discussed as a not good thing.
Yeah.
Probably most notably in one of the cabinet battles.
Yes,
Uh,
I remember that. I
yeah,
don't remember the exact line, but I do remember when that happens.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my best guess as to why this aspect is not as present as it could be
Mm-hmm.
is because, unfortunately, with how Hamilton's life works, as best as I understand it, obviously there are aspects of his life I don't understand. And again, like I mentioned, that Hamilton did do abolitionist work,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but we don't really see any of that during the story itself.
No, we don't.
It's unfortunately, if it were to be present,
Yeah.
it would not be the the with since I'm just trying to find the right words to say it. I
No,
know what
I
I'm trying to
know. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
because
You got it.
because while yeah, Hamilton was against it, unfortunately nothing happened within his lifetime to change it.
Right.
So in just a pure narrative sense, introducing it and then trying to discuss, hey, this isn't a good thing, this isn't a thing we should be doing, would really be a hanging plot thread.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can again, I can see where people are coming from with it. Um, and while yes, I would like that acknowledged more, it's not removed. It doesn't say, oh, none of the founding fathers owned slaves. We're like, Jefferson, you slave owner. And I think there's a mention that a passing mention that Washington, in fact, does.
Yeah.
Uh, but I can't, yeah.
Because he
So
definitely owned
it's
slaves,
not
yeah.
saying that it doesn't exist nor that these founding fathers didn't have them.
Right.
It's acknowledges that it's a thing, which
Mm-hmm.
again, unfortunately, is all it can do
Okay,
in
you're
terms
okay,
of
yeah.
the overall narrative structure.
So you would say it's more of a question of, like, you don't see it as historical revisionism as much as it's just not relevant in some ways.
Yeah,
Okay.
like if there was if during Hamilton's lifetime and Hamilton was responsible for a major motion that banned slavery to a large extent,
Mm-hmm.
if that wasn't in the play, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. Okay.
But that didn't happen. That obviously couldn't happen with what we know of history.
Right.
Uh,
You okay there?
so again, yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right.
But the thing, but the thing I thought you were going to bring up is that there has been criticism levied against Hamilton for not having options for white actors to be cast as.
No, that was not what I was gonna bring up. But
No, and
okay.
because it is an interesting thought because like again a lot of these roles are white so it's not unfeasible that they couldn't be cast by that
Right.
white actors couldn't be cast as them, but the
Mm-hmm.
casting calls specifically say, hey, we want people of minority, we do not want white people specifically, and there was some criticism levied against that I even think made televised news.
I
um
mean, I kind of feel like that. Oh, I'll let you finish, and then maybe I'll talk.
and I think that was more so I forget what I forget what the term for it would be, but like an unfair. It was just like an unfair comparison or an
A false
like
equivalency.
false equivalent, or it was bad faith. It was a bad
Bad
faith,
faith
or
criticism. Yeah.
yeah, bad faith criticism, because there's a reason why they were cast like that. There was a point. There's a
Yeah.
point for this specific casting, and this is why when when from the people that I believe that would have done this, like
Mm-hmm.
this false equivalency uh, raising, um, they hear it from the other side, because like I do feel this is a more politically motivated gesture than actual like equality stuff, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Like especially around this time, there was like things about like whitewashing in Hollywood, especially with Asian actors.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and the thing with that is that those people exist. You can cast them as the parts they're supposed to play. While while I do say theater tends to be progressive in its ideas,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things it does falter on is that you have to get a specific person to be cast for a specific part in a lot of circumstances,
Yeah.
because it does oftentimes rely on stereotypes or ideas of the people just by looking at someone, as opposed to having anyone fit the part and be able to play the part.
Yeah.
Um,
It's,
but again, in the
mm-hmm.
States, there's a reason behind it. It's a different thing than if it's like, I'm trying to think, like Little Shop of Horrors, let's say, like the characters in that, they don't need to be white.
No.
There's
Yeah.
nothing relevant within the story or within the message of the musical itself that says every single one of these people has to be played by a white actor. They have just been cast as such and traditionally been played by that. If an all minority school were to do that, there'd be no problems there.
Mm.
If it's more of a historical thing, then yeah, there's more issue with it, though, granted, because white people have had caused more problems for minorities. Doing the reverse is not
Right.
a
Yeah.
bad thing.
No,
Well, it's
no.
not, it's not nowhere near as questionable as when white people play a part of a black person in the
Right. Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, this show, the reason why people are cast as such is specific and intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's part of the message. Like, if it wasn't, then again, if that wasn't the reason why the cast, and just Hamilton and Lin-Manuel was just like, hey, everyone just play, everyone just try out. It doesn't matter to me. Then I wouldn't have any qualms about like it going to a white high school and everyone being white except for Alexander Hamilton, because he's actually Puerto Rican.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I do, yeah, that to me that is one of the uh what am I trying to say? Yeah, I think I think that idea is very bad faith. I think that you have to think about like the intent of the creators and sort of how that
Yeah.
plays into it, right? And like like why are you trying to shoehorn in this element that the play is not trying to shoehorn, right? And like I
Yeah.
would also say it's not like white people are hurting for roles, right? Like
No,
just don't
also
play
that.
just don't go for Hamilton, that's all.
Yeah.
You just like many musicals you can choose from that have white cast. It's kind of like Lord of the Flies. If Lord of the Flies, like I remember I saw a production of Lord of the Flies at the Paper Mill Playhouse, which is kind of near where I live, and they actually cast some women in the roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of take umbrage with that because Lord of the Flies was a response book specifically for another book that was created. It was like basically the same premise kind of as Lord of the Flies, where a bunch of white prep boys get crashed on an island and they create a utopia. But
Mm-hmm.
so the author of Lord of the Flies, whose name I forget, I don't know how I'm forgetting his name, basically said, I don't agree with that. I think that if these specific people crash landed on an island, it would all go to hell real fast. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of that is because they're privileged white boys from a prep
Yeah.
school, and that's why it goes to chaos. I think the author even had said before that the reason why he didn't have women in his story is because he believed that if women were involved in the crash, it wouldn't have gone so poorly. So to me, that would be a scenario in which I would say if you casted like had a more diverse cast, it would be missing the point of the play, and it would be detracting from Lord of the Flies as a novel. So there's that aspect too.
Yeah, but this is where like when there are recast, like when there are all female productions of like Hamlet or whatever, it doesn't matter because
no, yeah, because like there are, I'd say,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Out of all of the roles in Shakespeare's plays, pretty much the only one I could think, the only ones that matter are the minorities. Shylock being Jewish, Othello being African.
Yeah.
Those are the parts that matter. Everything else doesn't matter. Like, yes, some of them are based on like Egyptian myth and English myth, but like end of the day, that who's casting that does not have strong bearing on what the message of the story is.
Exactly. Like it's very, I'd say it's very, like it would be permissible to cast, that casting shouldn't matter as long as like your decisions when it comes to casting should always be predicated on the material that you're casting for, right? And how much race, gender, etc. matters to the story as a whole. Yeah. Although I would still say that if a part was originally meant for a minority, recasting it as a white person, not necessarily a good idea.
Minority, it usually means there's a reason for it.
Typically, yeah. I mean,
because unfortunately, the general mindset in our culture is that white is the default, which is a horrible conceit.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay, I think we're both on the same page on that. And yeah, I didn't realize that was a criticism of it. But speaking of criticisms, do you have any like legit criticisms personally of this play, of this thing?
Not really, honestly.
Okay.
I'm trying to just backtrack in my head.
Because I've mentioned before that there were a couple songs that I didn't like as much as other ones. I mean, that's not me saying that they suck. It was just, they weren't as good. I personally would have maybe preferred for the soundtrack to have been a bit more on the rap side, just because I think it would have been a little bit more fresh. But like I think the sort of equilibrium that Lin-Manuel Miranda struck was fine and absolutely 100% good. So I think that's probably, again, that's probably more of like a wish on my part rather than like me acting as like an editor making notes on what I think would improve the play. Yeah. But I and a lot of that, I feel like a lot of that's because like a Broadway show wouldn't be like, part of me thinks that the reason why Hamilton's soundtrack was such a hit is just because it still has those Broadway elements to it. I feel like if it had gone the just full rap route, it wouldn't nearly have been as popular, even though I might have enjoyed it a lot more. Not that I don't like Broadway musicals. Like, I do. I have some Broadway songs on my Spotify playlist. One of them is a Sub Rock Tango from Chicago.
Yep.
So I'm not.
That is not traditional Broadway.
No, it's not. Like I do like my Broadway. I do like some Broadway stuff. So I'm not trying to diss. Well, I also have like some songs from Wicked. I need to add Always Look at the Bright Side of Life. I need to do it. I haven't done it yet, but that's another favorite of mine now. So I'm not allergic to Broadway on any terms, but I think I'd prefer, like, on a choice between listening to good Broadway music that's kind of similar to other Broadway musicals I've listened to, or something completely different and new, I'd prefer the completely different and new angle. So, but again, yeah, I don't really have. I feel like I might have had more criticisms maybe if I was able to talk about this as a whole package, but unfortunately, no. Nope.
Oh.
Not right now, but yeah. So on your end, not really anything noteworthy?
No.
Worthy? Worthy?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you wanted to talk about this show? I feel like we've hit a lot of the big parts of it.
I think we got through the big things. Yeah.
Okay.
Got through everything I could really think of that I want to make sure was mentioned.
All right. Cool. So, overall thoughts again, briefly, before we sign off.
Amazing. If you go see it, you should go see it. If this is your type of, if musicals are your type of thing, maybe listen to SoundJack first, because again, the tickets are expensive. If the tickets were a lot less expensive, it'd be like, I don't care, you should go see it.
Yeah.
But it's a popular Broadway show. Of course, the tickets are through the roof.
Yeah, and
it's not going away anytime soon.
No.
It's this generation's Wicked.
Yes.
Generation's Phantom of the Opera. It's this generation's Les Mis.
Oh, dang. Yeah, I think it's definitely that has that much of it definitely feels like a significant play that will probably last.
It's going to be a mainstay post in the Broadway scene for a long while. Yes.
So, I also agree. I think there's definitely a reason why this play is such a hot commodity. I think it's not overrated. It's not overrated. I think it definitely does a lot of really cool things, and I definitely think it has been worth all the praise it's been lobbed at it. I can understand why someone might not like it, obviously, because everyone has their own tastes, and if you're not into musicals, I don't know how much this would sway you. But I do think that the music is different enough that I think if someone doesn't really like musicals, they might get into it anyway. So
yeah,
that's my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it from us. So, Alyssa, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at @TheRationalDove. Check me out.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SoundJack426. Also, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And with that being said, thanks for tuning in. This is SoundJack and Alyssa signing off.